Okay, in an earlier tutorial, we imported a Photoshop graphic and used that as a lower third. Now, what if we wanted to recreate this lower third and build it right in Vizrt itself? And the reason you would want to do that for several reasons. Number one, you'd have better control over the animation and how you can animate it on and off of the screen. And number two, for optimization reasons. You don't want your lower third to stutter when you're playing out on air. If you build everything within Vizrt natively, everything will be optimized better for your scenes on air. To get started, we're just going to close that example scene. And I'm going to go into my images here. I have a snapshot as a reference. And first thing that we want to do is go into our scenes here and make sure, number one, that we're going to use the classic render mode. So we're going to switch over to the classic render mode. We're going to go back into our scenes here, up into the global settings. And I'm going to take one of my pictures of my graphic here, and I'm going to place it into the background image. Now at any time I could come in here within my scene here and just turn this little checkbox on or off, and we are only going to use this as a reference image for ourselves. Now I'm going to start building the scene. So what I'm going to do is go into our plugins here, and we're just going to kind of rebuild each graphic here block by block per se. So first I have a red rectangle here with a logo. I have a white rectangle here with some text. A couple of ways that we could do this. Number one, we could use a rectangle. We could also use a cube, and or we could use a nagi. Each one has its advantages and disadvantages as far as what you can do. For now, I'm just going to use a rectangle. So I'm going to slide that up into our scene tree. And either I can use the transformation axis here to move it, and or I can click right in the scene editor window and move it. I'm going to go into the rectangle editor itself and then use the height and the width to readjust just about where I need this. So I'm not going to worry too much about precisely matching the graphic. We're just going to get it close. So let's say our height is at 55 and our width is right around there. That's fine. Now, while that I have the scene here, I can use the color from my scene to grab the color for my rectangle. So I can click on my rectangle. I'm in the use vertex colors. I have that checked. I'm going to select a color for my upper left. And remember, we have this picker here that we come over and we can pick over, or we could use our selector here to select the color red that we want. Once we have a color, you can go down and repeat the process, or you could just drag this down onto the next color like that. And if you want to create a slight variation on any of them, you can. So maybe we'll just darken this one a bit and then slide that one up there as well, and it creates a little bit of a darker shading on the right side of that. Now, since I have the height correctly set up, I'm just going to copy that container. I'm hold down Control and I'm going to click and drag. Now I'm going to rename this. So this one was red, and I can rename by double clicking on that container. This one was white. And now I'm going to move this white rectangle over just by repositioning it. This is going to be our white bar. I'm going to click on the rectangle. I can turn the use vertex colors off, or I could select colors in here if I want to create a little bit of shading. So for example, I can copy all these down, and then if I wanted to just make this a little bit darker gray, select the color for that one, and it's got a little bit of gray in it. Now we just need to make the width okay. So we're going to come up here into the rectangle width and just keep sliding this out to roughly where we think we'll need it to. And then you may need to just readjust it again with your transformation axis here. So we're getting pretty close. I'm going to go into the scene. I'm going to turn my background reference off. I'm just going to close the gap here between the red and the white rectangle by spreading out the width again. And that gets us closer to where we are. And now that's the white bar. So we can go ahead and group these. We'll go ahead and select both containers. Now that they're both highlighted, I can come up into this G button and hit the little G button, and we can slide that right into the group. And if you want to rename that as well, we'll call that the L3. Now there's a couple of elements here that we still need. We still need to add that logo, and we still need to add some text. So we'll do that next. We'll go into our asset view here, And within our images, we have a logo. So I'm just going to slide that right up into the scene. And if we want to place it within that group, we can slide it within that group too. It's all up to you and how you want to organize it. Now we just need to reposition this. We're going to move it ahead one spot in Z space. Since our red rectangle was at 0, we're going to move our logo up in Z space 1 so that it doesn't interfere with the red rectangle. Lastly, we'll need to scale this logo down a bit, and finally we will just reposition it roughly right around there. Now lastly, we need some text, so I'm going to add a new group here, and this is going to be our text group. So I'm just going to go ahead and rename that. I'm going to go down into our font or F tab here and go through my folders or my assets here to look for fonts. So here I have a folder with some fonts, and if I click on the right folder, we get a font for the classic mode. So here's our first font that I want to use for our lower third. I'm going to drag this up into our text group container, and if you want to change this to the main text, we can. Now here's our text, so we can reposition this roughly right now, and then to scale this down, we just need to click on the transformation axis editor, and then we can roughly reposition this. Let's go into the text a while, and we're going to color it. So we click on the text icon, takes us into the text editor, and within the text editor we have a colored option. We can come down here and select black for our color option here, and then once you have the color, it's just a matter of typing in and setting the size and the design of the text you need. For example, if you want this all to be capitalized, then you would want to set that up within the scene. So sizing, again, you just come over and adjust the size within your transformation axis editor here. Place it where you think you want it to go. So now also, while we're in this font editor, in the last video we showed you how to constrain the text using a plugin called the max size. Now that plugin or functionality is basically built into the text function within the text itself. So down here within the orientation section of our text, we have this text box, and we can turn this on or off. If we turn it on, it goes active. There's a little active switch. We just turn that on. When we do that and our bounding box is on, we get this orange box bar here. And down below we have options. It says wrapping, which means it's going to wrap on the word. And here you can see that headline goes, and then it wrapped on that word here. If we put it on any, it will wrap on any letter when it hits the edge of that orange bar. So if we want to scale this out to the edge of the white, we just need to come down here to the width, and we'll say this is as wide as it could possibly get. We don't want it to go past that mark, and if it does, it's automatically going to wrap. We also want to place the height here, so as we adjust the height down, you'll see that orange bar adjust down. Now that means anytime you come up and type within your text editor here and you type extra spaces, it's going to wrap on that space and actually cut off. If we increase that height of the orange bar, it's going to continue on to the second line, but since we decrease the height and have it cut off, it's not going to show that second line. So we're going to go up and delete the extra text here, but know that it's all set up with our text constraint here. So next we need our sub headline. So we're just going to copy this main text by holding down Control, clicking and dragging, and then we'll double click it and we'll type sub headline or sub or whatever. Spelling doesn't count on this. It doesn't matter what you name it. So now that I have this font, we'll come up and change the text within our sub headline, and we can type whatever we want within here. So this will be our sub headline. However, we may not want that font so thick. So within our font selection down here, within our asset view, we can swap out our font. We can use a lighter font by dragging that up onto that font, and it will replace it. And if you want to replace it again with another font to see what that looks like, we can just swap it out that way. And finally, you would just need to come back into your scaling and or positioning just to get the size and or position right for that. Now, since we copied that font, we already have our active text box on there. So you just may need to adjust the width of that because we changed the font, which also changed the font size. And you can see here with our text box that it's a little bit smaller. So we may need to add the width to that. And if you wanted to come up here and just type in some extra type to check that it cuts off at a certain point, just keep typing and you can see that it cuts off. All right, so we're going to erase that extra text. And now we're going to save the scene since we haven't done that yet. So we're going to come now over here into our save as. We're going to select the folder where we want to save it, and we'll just give this a new name. So we'll just type a new name, we'll hit save, and now our scene is saved. If we go back into our scene settings and turn on our reference image, there are still a couple of parts that we need to get done, which is this strap, the upper right, and the lower right time. And we'll address all that in additional videos.